for HR. And we have with us two very experienced gentlemen who will take us through the discourse for the next hour. Very quickly, I'd like us to run through the housekeeping rules. We promise to send you the slides at the end of this session. Only attendees will be sent the slides at the end of this session. So don't be worried. You will get both slides. Also, I'd like to reemphasize that questions can be sent through the question box in your Zoom control panel, and it will be attended to, it will be addressed during the Q&A session. Please keep your microphones tuned off at all times to avoid the background noise. Having said that, it gives me very great pleasure to introduce our discussants for today. We have Mr. Aderiola. Mr. Aderiola currently leads a consulting outfit known as Analytics World Solution. He is an external digital transformation consultant to different professional services and a learning facilitator at the Design Thinkers Academy. We also have with us Mr. Adeyemi Ajayi, who is the lead partner with Exitum Consulting Limited. He's an HR expert, a strategist, and people analytics expert. Gentlemen, welcome to the session and thank you for honoring our invitation. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Thank you.
You're welcome, sirs. So like we started off, we said we'll be looking at design thinking for HR, and I'd like you, sir, Mr. Olonrutoye, to lead this discussion this afternoon.
Okay, thank you, Henrietta. Let me share my screen so I think you will have to give me control so that I can share my screen. Okay. So can you all see my screen?
Not yet, sir.
Okay. Okay, just hold on. Hey, what happened? Okay. So can you see it now? I think you can see my screen now. I wanted to confirm, Henrietta, can you see the screen now?
Yes, we can. We can see it.
Beautiful. Okay, so thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for this opportunity to share briefly with you on design thinking with specific focus on HR. And I normally like to tell HR practitioners that design thinking being a methodology that can be used for different processes in an organization is not specific to HR alone. So don't try and colonize design thinking. That is for you alone. Number two is that design thinking in itself in the HR management space is a means to an end. It's a global innovation approach that is helping companies to redefine employee and workplace experience. And that's the context in which we're going to look at design thinking. I'll play this video for you to see just a brief history.
Problems that are big. Exploring alternatives, creating options that had not existed before. Design thinking is successful because it focuses on the needs of the user. It's more than just good ergonomics, it's about understanding the context and culture of the stakeholders involved. This understanding is found using direct observation, qualitative data, which produces stories that people really empathize with. Once the research is conducted, the problem solver is more apt to define what the real problem is. After diagnosing the true problem, it's time to ideate or brainstorm new ideas without the constraints of existing. Because design thinkers learn by doing, these radical ideas are then made into simple prototypes that test possible outcomes. Ideating, prototyping, and testing repeated early on so that mistakes are quick, cheap, and ultimately success. So, why design thinking? The process provides a method and a unifying language for multidisciplinary collaboration, leading to greater creativity, better solutions faster. Suddenly, the world's problems are simple and manageable with design.
Thank you. So that was a quick video giving us overview of design thinking. So you will notice from the video, design thinking is human-centered. And that is a major difference between design thinking and other methodologies for improving corporate processes, the performance of corporate processes, and us as well as solving problems. The major difference is the human-centered approach. And there are four key things that must be incorporated if your approach to solving an HR problem will be a design thinking approach. There are four key things, and those things are the things that are in yellow. Empathy for the humans involved in the process, whether it's an onboarding process, it's a recruitment process, or whether it's performance management process, is a succession planning process, whatever process in HR or even in any organization you are trying to improve or solve a problem in the process, empathy for the humans involved is critical. Without it, then design thinking ceases to be. It may be another kind of methodology. So empathy, and this is, I'll elaborate more on this. Two, collaboration. Collaboration with all of the stakeholders. We always build stakeholder map at the point of starting a design thinking exercise. Okay, number three is co-creation. You cannot solve a problem or improve a process for a person involved in a process more than the person involved. You can't know what the person needs. In fact, the idea, one of the best ideas for improving a process or solving a problem, many a times in design thinking, come when it is jointly done with the people involved. So co-creation is critical. And because design thinking approach is not meant to be an event, continuous stakeholder feedback becomes critical so that you can continually unlock creativity in your HR process and, of course, opportunity to innovate what is feasible, what is viable and desirable by the people involved. So in a nutshell, defining design thinking, this is what we define design thinking as. Critical to note in design thinking, which makes it the toast of organizations for innovation for any process. Critical to design thinking are three things. One, desirability. When you build empathy with the people involved, you understand their desires. And so whatever HR process, for example, this, in the last 1 year, we've been doing so much of employee experience definition for companies. And what do the staff desire? The staff in this situation are the users, or we can call them the customers in an HR process. So what do the users, what does the customer desire? That's desirability. Whatever solution you're going to bring to an HR problem or HR process must be desirable. Two, can it be implemented? Is it feasible? And today, being the digital economy that we are in now, most of the improvements we are seeing in HR and even other processes are improvements that are being driven by technology. Technology, particularly digital technology, is making things that weren't feasible before, making them feasible. So you are concerned about desirability, about feasibility, which technology drives, and lastly, viability. So if you're going to improve a process or solve a problem, and the cost of solving the problem is about times 2 of the value we'll get from it, then that is not viable. And so the people that are involved in these 3 categories, in the business, users, and the technology people that understand what is possible, you have to include them in your design thinking exercise or your design thinking project. By the time we combine the thoughts and the minds of these 3 categories of people, most of the time you are able to unlock innovation, which is what you see at the green intersection at the center of these 3 categories of people that must be involved in a design thinking exercise. And the benefits are very clear. But, companies, organizations, public sector, private sector, they're able to rethink existing problems in new ways to unlock spaces for innovation, particularly for innovation and creative solutions. And of course, design thinking, because it preaches co-creation. Therefore, you build stronger, sustainable partnership and collaboration between all of the people, the users, the business, and the technology, all the people that are involved. There is a sense of collaboration. In fact, we even normally say that when we do design thinking for customer experience redefinition, what we have seen is the fact that when you use design thinking approach, marketing cost reduces. Why? You don't need to sell to the person that you have co-created a solution for, okay? Co-created a solution with, because they were part of the process. And so they're just waiting for you to bring it live. You don't have to sell it to them. And the same thing, goes for HR, human capital management. When solutions to staff problem, to employee problem are co-created with the employee, you don't have to sell to them. Adoption rate for such kind of approach to problem solving becomes seamless and exponential because they were part of it. We emphasize visualization. It helps the company, it helps you to visualize both the problem and also the solution to the problem, because that is what design thinking helps approach design thinking takes to some problems. We visualize, a single picture, people say speak more than 1,000 words. And so we visualize both in getting the problem and also in addressing the problem. And because it's a proven approach, the methodology, which varies from place to place, but I always like to narrow to one methodology, which is the Stanford approach, okay? You are able to track, if you don't get it right, you're able to track where you missed it. That's why it's a proven approach, it's a methodology. And so benefits also outweighs this, but these are the 4 that I would just like to emphasize at this point. The key to design thinking is empathy. And many times people don't understand empathy. People think empathy is simple. But empathy, even from someone like me with 20 years background in technology, in the technology space, we even what other categories of people will see empathy as. So, and if you look at the bottom of this slide, the people that coined this definition are a group of people called A Place for Mom. In other words, mothers. And if you want to ask, the people that are most empathetic, in the world are mothers. And so even in the technology space, we have adopted this definition of empathy from mothers as a definition, and it is changing, like you will see, changing a whole lot of technology solutions available globally. I like to play this video. This video tells us what empathy is not. This football club lost by 4-0. Sorry to Man U supporters, but some people claim that this is Man U, and this is how Ferguson used to address Man U players when they lose matches. Sorry to all Man U supporters, but that's a joke anyway. But this is not the way to build empathy in improving a process. See the video briefly.
Oğlum ben size ne dedim ulan? Biz buraya maç yapmak için gelmedik ulan. Niye buradayız? Niye buradayız? Niye koşmuyorsun o zaman? Sen niye koşmuyorsun? Bu ne? Ne Bakıyorsunuz lan buraya bak. Kız mısınız lan siz? He? Siz kız mısınız lan? Lan! Ulan bana koşacak futbolcu lazım. Oturmak yok. Oturmak yok.
Okay, so let me end this.
Asker-
So this is not the way to build empathy at all. If you want to improve a process or you want to solve a problem in your human capital, team organization. Okay, so I normally like to use the Stanford University design thinking process as the way to teach and explain design thinking, because it's actually the first that was originated. And there are 5 steps in the design thinking process for any process you want to improve or for any problem you want to solve. First is to build empathy with the people involved. 2 is to document in a way, document and define the insight from the empathy building phase. With that insight, you are now able to go into ideation based on the insight and the opportunities that you have noticed or found out while documenting the data from your empathy building stage. And then next thing is to prototype, test out the ideas. The ideation stage has, two stages in it. There's a stage where we call divergent thinking, where we are focused on building a lot of ideas. And then we also have convergent thinking, where we bring ideas together to take them into prototyping. But many a times you may have multiple divergent and convergent thinking before you even go to prototyping. And then you test and you continue. The process continues again because you have put in place mechanism for continuous stakeholder feedback. So that is the process that the D School of the Stanford University have put in place, and which is the most common approach, common framework for design thinking globally. And I've explained this, from the previous slide. Empathizing stage is to learn about the audience. It's not really to be sentimental, because some people, think empathy can also mean being sentimental, but touching the heart, feeling the heart of the people involved. That's what we are looking out for. Understanding what the people involved in the process are feeling, where the shoe pinches them. And we call learning about the audience. And of course, get the insights by resharpening the questions via definition approaches. Brainstorm ideas, prototype them, let's see how the ideas will work out, test them against the pain that you discovered at the empathy building stage. That's what we're testing against. And the stage is completed. So I've tried to explain it much more further, but let me highlight the points in this further explanation. At the empathy building stage, it's important to know the category of users involved in the process that you want to improve. Many a times you're not able to, if your company has 30,000 staff, for example, you are not able to interview or talk to 30,000 people. It's almost impossible, okay, to get their opinion. So what do? You want to focus on what we call the extreme users, either the people who do not use the process at all, or those who are always using the process. And the reason is because those people are the ones that dictate what other people do. So, and they are few in number. We've seen over time that you will likely get the best information from the extreme users in the process. These are the people you want to target when you want to build empathy. And empathy involves asking questions. It involves interview. Sometimes we do observation. We just go and observe the users in their context, that is in the environment. For example, onboarding. We just go and, observe how people are onboarded, or recruitment. We observe, or performance planning. We just observe the process without talking to them. Sometimes you discover lots and lots of information, but better still is to actually talk to the people, okay? Open-ended questions, questions about how, about why are very important in getting to understand the pain of the users involved. And sometimes when empathy building is very expensive, you may want to do focus groups. Bring people into a single room and ask them questions and talk to them. That is cheaper to implement. There are many tools in design thinking. For each of the stages, there are tools that are involved. Persona is a basic tool for design thinking, which we use to aggregate and document the data about the empathy and the pain of the users. And I won't go through this because it's just 30 minutes that we have. Also, part of what we do in understanding a problem in design thinking is to use what we call current feature barriers. So this is a mixture of both empathy and also reframing of a problem. We've seen situations where HR people will tell us we have this problem. But by the time we go and build empathy, we find that actually that problem exists that they've called us for, but really there are other problems that are much more important, that will have much more impact on the human capital process. And so these kind of tools and design thinking help you to explore problems and actually understand the other areas that even the business may not know that they have problems. That's what that tool does. When you are building empathy, it is important to always keep an open mind. Remove biases when you are interviewing the personnel or the people involved in the process you want to improve, okay, or problem you want to solve. Remove biases. Please open your heart, open your mind to listen, because many a times when there are biases, you will not see the problems, the challenges, the pain staring you in the face, because normally human beings, it's been proven, do not see what they are looking at. Human beings mostly see what they are looking for. And so we always emphasize to remove your biases so that you can see what is staring you in the face and what they're saying. Next stage is definition. And this stage, as simple as short as it is very critical. This is where we document the insight that we receive from the empathy building stage. It's critical because it's a bridge between empathy building and ideation, okay? And simply, what we create, the deliverable from this stage is what we call the POV, point of view. That is a user that you empathetically define, maybe during the pained teller or during the overworked teller. So we define the user from an empathetic perspective, needs a way to balance his books faster so that he can close early. So the closing early there is the insight. The needs there is what I need to do to get the insight. And this is straightforward. We've seen cases where in a single exercise, people come up with close to about 40 insights, 40 points of view. And this just, helps you document, the problems that are involved in the process you want to improve. This in itself becomes an asset to your department for the problem you want to solve. And so it is important not to jump this stage. Some people jump, they go from empathy to ideation, but we don't advise that at all, because this asset, you will lose it, okay? And so from that, also part of what you get, or how you can build your point of view, is what we call the customer journey mapping. This is one of the strongest tools in design thinking, okay? You get insight and you see the opportunities for ideation via customer journey mapping, and you create your point of view too. And so with that, you go into ideation. And in ideation, this is my favorite stage, favorite phase of design thinking, actually, okay? We emphasize that there are many rules which you cannot go through. It takes about 4 hours to teach ideation alone. But there are many rules. Defy judgment, encourage people to come up with wild ideas. Lot of ideas is always the goal during ideation, because one of the fathers of design thinking said that the worst idea is to have only just one idea. So you are focused on building lots and lots of ideas. And one of the best ideas that we've also observed over time are ideas that are built on top of other people's idea during ideation stage. And so no judgment, there is no wrong answer. Normally I tell people, having trained over 500 people in Nigeria in the last 3 years, that there is no wrong answer in design thinking. What you think is a wrong answer actually may be the breakthrough idea that you need to solve the problem. And there are many tools also for ideation, brainstorming, facts and light. Facts and lights is my favorite tool for ideation, but we can't go through it a lot. But these are things I'm sure once you get the slide, you can read up and see how you can carry out facts and lights for your ideation and brainstorm process. Also, because we are in the digital economy, we emphasize that during ideation, you think of the possibilities that digital tools can bring to the problem you want to solve. And the 4 basic tools you must consider, apart from the latest ones we are seeing, which is AI, which is chatbots and the rest. The 4 basic tools: social media, mobile, analytics, and cloud. By the time you consider the possibilities that these digital tools can bring, you are able to come up with better ideas to solve problems, because feasibility is very important. I will not go through this in detail. And so after ideating, building a lot of ideas, converging the ideas, again, building a lot of ideas, converging the ideas, then it's time to test out the ideas, the ones you want to move forward with. And that's what we call prototyping. Okay, experiment it. Let's see how it will solve the problem. If you think on paper, one idea may give you, say, 80% value for the process you want to improve, and idea B may give you 40% value. By the time you prototype and run through it in the context of the user, you may be surprised that the one you think will give you 40% value with analysis actually may be the one that will give you 90% value. So prototyping is a critical stage in design thinking, bringing the idea to life. And of course, sketching is the basic form of prototyping. There are many, many other ways we prototype, wireframes, and all the rest. Many ways to prototype, but sketching is the basic form. And so once you prototype, every prototype must undergo a test. And when you are testing, it's important to know that you aren't testing just to say, oh, the idea is working. No, we are testing to see what works in the idea, what did not work, how can we correct what didn't work by creating new ideas to address what didn't work. You are testing for usefulness and for usability of ideas. This is important to note in the testing phase. And so going through these stages from empathy to testing, can be 1 hour, can be 2 hours, can be 1 day, can be 1 week, can be 1 month, can be 1 year. It all depends on how novel the idea or the problem you want to solve, how difficult the problem is, how novel the idea you are bringing to life is. But there is no other than fast through. You can go through these 5 phases in 1 hour, like I said. We've done things for HR departments that we solve problems in just 3 hours. Okay, but at the same time, over 4 days, I will show you the example. We've solved problem also for over 4 days. Period of 4 days for HR department. So there is no other fast rule about how long it takes for you to iterate. Multiple empathy, definition ideation is what we call iteration, and that you must go through to solve the problem. But let's focus a little bit more in next 3 minutes on HR itself, okay? Where we have seen this work over and over. We've seen design thinking as a good methodology being employed in organizational design. When you are restructuring roles, or even you are restructuring the business or the organization itself, design thinking approach has helped a lot. Also, in workforce engagement, making work easier, making work more efficient, design thinking approach has helped companies to engage their workforce in a much more easier way and with much more reward. And then in learning processes, we've seen learning curriculum, we've seen learning methodologies defined with empathy in mind. And that is also a key part of HR where design thinking has been applied. Okay. And in the area of analytics, and today, like many of you will know, HR analytics is becoming a big game changer for human capital organizations and even for companies, organizations in itself. Okay. How do you measure the things that are critical? Data analysis for managing human capital and human resource initiatives. Design thinking has been applied a lot in that area. Fortunately, this is my own certification, analytics, and we've done a lot around this area. And of course, the HR skills too. HR skills that need to be upgraded, especially in this day when we're talking about future of work. We run future of work program for a day, and people plot their future. Design thinking approach is what we bring in to the future of work definition when we deliver future of work, retreat for companies. And of course, lastly, digital HR. Digital is not digital if is not human-centered. Adoption will be difficult. So in digital HR, as people are considering today, design thinking methodology is being applied a lot. And we think the action items that HR leaders should consider leaving this webinar should be: what do employee experience on their journey, okay, from getting hired to leaving a company? What does a great employee experience look like from end to end? How can HR help build human-centered design principles throughout the whole organization? These are questions that we think design thinking will help you answer a lot. There are some case studies here, but I will not go through all of them in detail. It's good to know that this slide is from the World Economic Forum. I picked it from the World Economic Forum, and it's telling us that in the digital economy, the human capital organization itself is undergoing change. And part of the roles that are becoming endemic for people-centric organizations that are employing design thinking to redefine employee experience, you will see part of the roles is, you will see design learning manager, digital work experience expert. And these are roles that are design thinking. The skill being employed largely here are design thinking skills. I was involved in defining the job description for a company that was employing design thinkers here in Nigeria. So even in the HR space, design thinking has come to stay and is a big skill that is being employed to make things better. Some case studies: Airbnb, Pixar. Airbnb has changed its HR chief human resource officer to, imagine, chief employee experience officer, because employee experience is the key word for today, is the key thing you want to enable today, and design thinking is part of that process. In a Nigerian bank, not too long ago, like I said, we spent over 4 days, and the focus was to use design thinking over 4 days to redefine employee experience. Also, another Nigerian bank too that wanted to do is HR planning for 2020. We had to use design thinking to help them create the plan for 2020, which was human focused. And so these are the things that are going on. But it's not only HR that design thinking is being used. Like I said, any part of an organization's process, design thinking can be employed. This slide shows a state in the US where teenage pregnancy was increasing and increasing, and a company was called to look at this problem, and they used design thinking. And part of what they did was, they got from empathy building was the fact that actually teenagers are afraid of getting pregnant. And so they latched in on that pain, okay, of being afraid. And they came up with ideas. One of the ideas that actually worked was this idea where they put this picture of a big stomach, pregnant stomach, in all of the areas in that state where teenagers go to, the washrooms, the public washrooms where they go to. And so when they come in, they see themselves with big stomach, and they ask the question on the screen: are you ready for this? It was found that this initiative alone led to 14% reduction in teenage pregnancy. And so what I'm saying is that it doesn't have to be techie. Your idea to address a problem doesn't have to be techie. Any idea can address problems for people. And so this is another customer, in Nigeria, where they were redefining employee experience, and look at what they came up with. This team here was focused on career planning and succession, and they came up with ideas that the company took home to go and solve. So I'm going to conclude. I know that my time is over by about 4 minutes now. I'm going to conclude with the words of the legend of design thinking and one of the legends of the digital economy, which is the late Steve Jobs. And whether it's employee experience or customer experience, he said, you've got to always start with the customer experience. The customer here in HR is the employee. You've got to always start with the customer experience and walk back towards the technology, not the other way around. Most of the time, what happens in organizations is that they deploy technology to solve problems or to improve processes without really considering what the experience of the employee or the experience of the customer is. But see a big techie man saying you always have to start with the customer experience. And so my advice is that in 2020 going forward, use design thinking to consider employee experience. Then walk back to how you will solve it, either with technology or with something else. But that is the short message I have to share with us. I hope that we will be able to answer questions and possibly interact much more. Thank you very much, Henrietta.
Thank you so much, sir, for that very engaging session. Again, I'd like to inform us that you can send in your questions using the Q&A buttons on the bottom of your interface. And Mr. Olorutoye and Mr. Adeyemi would be available to take your questions at the end of the next session. Would also like to inform us that even outside of the webinar today, you can take advantage again by going to our YouTube page to watch the webinar over and over and over again. Okay, without further ado, I'd like to hand over the floor to Mr. Adeyemi Ajayi. This time around, we'll be discussing as to how design thinking is disrupting HR and how we can use design thinking to improve our people and HR operations. Sir, you're welcome.
Thank you.
All right, the floor is yours, sir.
Thank you, Henrietta. Thank you, Mr. Aderiola. You made my job easier. Thank you so much. I would like to share my slide with you right away. Okay. Okay. Can you see my slide, please?
No, not yet.
Okay. There is no problem. Okay, can you see my slide now?
Yes, we can.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. I'll be quite short with time. Thank you, Mr. Adeniola. You make the journey quite easy for me, so I don't need to go to the basics. How is design thinking really influencing the world? You mentioned some key things which I noted, and I'm going to give some example of how design thinking has really disrupted HR and keeps disrupting HR. I can say that HR is one of those professions that will face disruption. And there is a saying by a friend of mine in Stanford University. He said it is no more called design thinking. It's now disruptive thinking. So it's going to be a very wonderful journey. So let's first look at some key focus of design thinking. Design thinking is changing culture from transactional HR to solution-based HR. A lot of people face problems at work every day, and they need a lot of solution. Design thinking is changing employee experience. There's a shift from employee engagement. Mr. Adeniola mentioned about employee engagement. Design thinking has gone to, okay, from employee engagement, what is their experience? So very, very important. I'll be touching on that later with example. And it's making HR managers to become more creative and innovative, shifting the mindset of HR managers. Design thinking has also brought in efficiency and effectiveness in the way HR conducts its business. And again, that tells you indirectly that the competencies of HR manager definitely will change. I love what Mr. Adeniola said, that design thinking is not defined as technology. No, design thinking is a shift in thinking. Permit me to use that word, is a shift in your thinking. And it makes HR to become more dynamic, very, very dynamic in its activities, creating consistent values for organization. Now, the adoption of technology is also a tool to drive business excellence, and design thinking leverages on that. I'll be giving an example here in Nigeria where without technology, design thinking was able to make top managers more efficient in Nigeria here. So let's look at an example with Cisco. Cisco was able to, a large extent, transform its workforce from traditional process-oriented model to people-oriented model. What that tells you to a large extent is that design thinking has a way of changing the way things are done. So in Cisco, Within a space of 24 hours, there was a project that was launched across 16 time zones, 29 countries, and 116 cities to identify problems with 71,000 people. There was 105 new HR solutions that were personalized, to people. It's no longer about process. It's how are people feeling and how would people go about what they do. It's not process defining what people do. It's people defining our process to help them to do what they should do. So the traditional space of using process to drive business has changed to using people to drive activities. So for Cisco, it was an overwhelming experience where 71,000 people got solution personalized to their challenges, and HR got a very big score for that. So design thinking has changed from general solution, traditional way of doing things, to personalized experience. This is one of the ways that design thinking has changed from employee engagement to employee experience. The experience of 71,000 people changed in 24 hours. That's quite amazing. Okay. Let's also look at LinkedIn. We're popular with a professional platform, LinkedIn, where there was a shift in employee engagement to employee experience again. This time around, there was a 6 weeks program wherein there are 1,000 participants, and this centers around how employees in LinkedIn were engaged. It's now about how do we get people to have work experience. If you work on employee experience, you get them engaged. If you drive engagement with policy, I don't know, you may make it a brick wall. So that tells you to an extent that design thinking has a way of shaping people's thinking, people's mind, attitudes to work. And, this is disruptive if you ask me. Again, let's look at some other organization about what is already changing. Design thinking has changed things in Citrix, SAP, P&G. And one of the typical example here is integrating mindsets, changing new attitudes, toolkits. Let me give an example of SAP, for example. By my own judgment, SAP, I would say, is one of the most innovative organizations in the world. Now, it has created a pool of brainstorming sessions for people where at each point where there is problem, there are also solutions. May I also want to address something about design thinking? Design thinking is no longer about addressing problems. It's about defining the future. And I like what Mr. Aderinola said about analytics. With predictive analytics, I can say, for example, in Nigeria, performance management in the future is one of the areas business owners want to get real return on investment on each employee. So how is design thinking going to address that? So that comes with a lot of deep mindset in terms of work, in terms of toolkits for work. And again, if you ask me, design thinking has a way of shaping organizational design, which is what Mr. Aderinola said. And we're talking about organizational design this time around. It goes beyond just setting up structures, fitting people into the structures. No, you're creating a flexible system that has its own changing DNA at each point. So you're creating a system that is not reactive, but proactive. So with design thinking, it gives room for future thinking. Permit me to also say that. And in Citrix, in SAP, in P&G, this is what is happening now. These are future organizations. They are thinking ahead of us. What's going to happen in 5 years' time? What's going to happen in 10 years' time at workplace? So they're preparing their minds ahead of this, which is quite very important. Now, let's come home in Nigeria. I like what Mr. Aderinola said about banks, looking at their workforce planning and what they are doing. I've been part of a project also with a pension company where they're looking at how the employees will transform the organization through the way they think and through the way they work. During this design thinking session, we discover without even the help of technology or without introducing technology to it, that many employees working in this organization, for example, don't even really need to come to work. And when we went back like 6 months to go and check, we discovered that their productivity increased tremendously. So it may just be from what Mr. Aderinola said about ideation. Even in ideation in design thinking, there are 3 ways, there are 3 packs for your ideation. You have ideas that are game-changing ideas. But can I also tell you, like you said earlier, the game-changing ideas could be the most stupid ideas that we have seen. I've also, I'll say that I'm lucky to be the second generation learner after Dr. M. Kelly. Dr. M. Kelly is the inventor of design thinking from Stanford University, and someone that directly learned under him, James, is a Ghanaian. I was opportune to learn through James, and I discovered that the ideation part, which is more of mental immersion, it's a place where you generate a lot of ideas that can change. So bringing that to HR space, it tells you that if HR gives room for a lot of brainstorming and innovation, there's a lot of change. But what do we think will change? I'm personalizing this to Nigeria, my beloved country. I know people are hearing me outside Nigeria, probably. One of the things that is about to change that we should watch out for is personalized learning. And if you are in the business of doing open learning, start thinking of personalized learning. How do you narrow learning to individual? How do you, because people can come to class and learn the same thing, but they have different focus. That's the truth. So design thinking should start looking at how do I personalize learning to this individual relative to the person's competency map. Again, like I mentioned earlier, there will be need for real-time performance tracking. How do we track people's performance from day to day? What are their performance by day, per week, per month, all along? Design thinking is working strongly around this. And auto recruits. I think there's a prototype of this that was being displayed by Volvo, where a car recruited its own engineer. And I can tell you it's happening now, where if you're looking for talent, you don't advertise. You narrow down to that talent, maybe on social media or somewhere through a system. So design thinking will make recruitment quite easy for you. I've been part of an experience of this talent sourcing. I mean, all the way from Europe. I mean, where I was narrowed down to, and I asked the person, I don't know you. The person said, we have your track records. So that tells you that out there, talent sourcing is going to change from you trying to first of all map the talent. All you need to do is, sort out who you want, define the talent, and through design thinking, you can easily map and narrow down to that talent. Again, virtual workspaces, I think that is in place already, and is a work of design thinking. This is going to gain strong relevance in the future. Again, breaking language barriers at workplace. If you're working in multinational companies, you have to be talking to somebody in Bahrain, somebody in Russia, and all that. With design thinking, language barriers are being broken. These are started already. And again, for stress management and mental health, how can design thinking help this in the future? Because these are emerging issues. These are issues that will come up in the future that we need to pay attention to. But HR managers have barriers. With design thinking, you can come up with idea, but what happens if regulatory framework doesn't exist to support you? And yes, you can go ahead with it. Or what happens if regulatory framework even works against your idea? These are some of the barriers you may likely face as HR managers, and poor adoption due to cost. You come up with fantastic, innovative idea. If there's no cost to run it, that may shoot you down. And lack of resources or infrastructure to sustain that, or willingness by business owner. You can also face internal politics, as HR manager. So as much as design thinking is disrupting the space, let's put these barriers at the back of our mind and also have a way, design something that can make us to solve these barriers. Okay. Now, how do we apply design thinking to HR and people orientation? Again, design thinking is not personalized to HR at all. It's all over, it's everywhere. It's in corporate governance, it's in compliance, it's in internal audits, it's in risk management, all over. But how does it affect HR? First, to adopt design thinking in HR, we need to focus on employee experience. And I love what Mr. Aderiola said about an airline in the US where the head of HR has become people experience manager. I think that is the name I've been seeing, all over the place now. And I think it's a laudable one. To adopt design thinking in HR, there's need to know that experience will constantly change. So when people's experience change, there should be a design thinking to address that, to empathize with them. What are the experiences that has changed, whether negatively, and again, define it, help them to ideate, help them to test and deploy to them. Very important, because these are end users. So you always need to be in constant touch with them. Everybody's experience change from time to time. And again, in the case where, in this case, it is expected that HR will become a thinking hub. And from time to time, HR has to put on its thinking cap. There's need to consistently check the change in people's experience. Again, you need to give room for brainstorming as much as possible in HR. With design thinking, HR manager will have to go a lot into more frequent critical brainstorming session. The frequency should go higher because so many issues come up every day. I see many of my colleagues in the HR space doing more of a lot of transactional activities, and it occupies the entire day. If you agree with me, 70% of HR's time is on transactional issue on a daily basis, trying to kill one fire, attend to one fire, one thing or the other just happens somewhere. But again, that tells you that there's need to have a brainstorming session, and data analytics can go a long way to help you monitor some of these things and help you even predict, and you become very, very proactive. Again, if you reward innovation as HR, there'll be a lot of innovations in your system. I think recently in Lagos State, I'm not too sure, the governor rewarded a young man for innovation. And the lot of that, if you get to so many parastatals, institutes, organizations in Nigeria, they don't reward innovation. That's the truth. If you reward innovation, it will spark fire in the bones of everyone. And HR should be the one to take that lead. So to apply it to HR also has to start looking at the way of rewarding innovation. And again, stakeholder engagement is quite very, very important. Before you apply design thinking, you need to look at stakeholders' engagements. How do you engage these stakeholders? Also, permit me to now come to this slide where I'll do a few explanations here in the next 3 minutes to wrap up this. First, the people we empathize with in HR are not just the employees, even the employers. Very, very important. So if you want to apply design thinking to HR, remember you have two people, two different groups that you need to attend to their needs. And these two people may have conflicting interests at a point in time, which puts you in the middle as HR person. You have to empathize with the business owner and also empathize with the employees. So it comes to with prioritization of your empathy. You need to prioritize it. And again, that takes you to defining the problems. And you have to define problems for both the employer and the employee. Many times when there are people problems, the business owners, they call on the HR. And whenever employees also have HR to reach the management, they call on the HR. So you are caught up within the two. So for HR to apply design thinking, it's very important to know that you are dealing with two sets of interests and which may be conflicted. And in defining their problem may be such that are also conflicting. So one may be asking for something that is totally different and working against the other. So it is one of the areas I really pity HR people, sincerely. Again, you can ideate across the organization to solve the problem and develop a prototype. Prototype this time around may not mean like designing a product. It may even be designing a policy, designing a culture, designing a system, and seeing how it plays with people. Then you test and deploy. One thing that we should also know is that design thinking requires a lot of scale up and reinvention from time to time. Now, from here, what other major areas can we apply design thinking? We can apply design thinking in recruitment. And in recruitment, that comes with how do you close out recruitment days? How do you reduce recruitment days? How do you make recruitment more efficient? How do you make recruitment more effective? In performance management, how do you effectively track performance from time to time and ensure that the data you're obtaining are very valid, they are precise, you can rely on them. And again, if you're looking at design thinking in terms of comp and ben, that comes with a value pay. I mean, the pay you are giving to an individual, does that person really worth it? And these are some of the things that we should really come up with. So there'll be serious impact on job evaluation through design thinking. There are a lot of examples I've given, but I have quite a very short time, and I'll be glad if I can get some questions quickly. Thank you very much. I would like to stop here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Again, would like to say that you could send in your questions using the Q&A buttons on your interface. And to all of our live streamers on YouTube, you could also send in your questions through the comment box and we will read them out. Okay, so very quickly to the questions we have on ground. Sir, are you saying that performance management has a direct relationship with design thinking?
Yeah, is that question for me?
Yes, please. Are you saying that performance management has a direct relationship with design thinking?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It starts even from KPIs, defining goals and all that, tracking end to end. It has very, very strong correlation.
Okay. Another question here says, thank you for that very insightful lecture. What is the role of a gut feeling for those who think they are the pinnacle of their career in design thinking? Does it mean that it's a conflicting part it's conflicting to say that gut feeling is the same as empathy?
You see, when you have empathy, like Mr. Aderola mentioned earlier, it has to be clearly defined. You know, gut feeling this time around may come with some level of assumption, but at the point of definition, there is clarity. So it may first come as a gut feeling, but at the point of definition, it's clear. So there's nothing wrong with gut feeling, but if that gut feeling cannot be clearly defined, then I think I have a problem.
Okay. And so, Mr. Olorutoye, this is for you. What is the correlation between agile and design thinking?
Okay, so agile is not the same as design thinking. Agile is a project management approach, project execution approach that emphasizes one of the areas of design thinking, which is rapid prototyping and testing. Rapid prototyping and testing. The area where it is different from design thinking is the fact that if empathy or ethnographic research was not conducted before you even ideated and prototyped, then the question will now be, what are you rapidly, prototyping and testing? Your design or your prototype may even be flawed from the scratch if empathy was not, was not employed. Also, people
Nothing just wrong.
Hello?
Yes,
Hello.
we can hear you. Yes, we can hear you now, sir.
Yeah, so did you hear me? I explained.
Yes, but it cut off midway.
Oh, okay. Oh,
Yes.
sorry. So I said that, so I said that agile is not exactly the same as design thinking,
okay,
but agile helps to facilitate a part of design thinking. Okay? And that part is the part of prototyping and testing. So when you use agile methodology for your product development, you are emphasizing rapid prototyping and testing. But I mentioned that what if from the onset, the service you are designing or the product you are designing from the onset did not consider empathy for the users involved, then design thinking is not involved. However, if you had built empathy for the people involved in the service or those involved in the product, and then you also use Agile at the prototyping and testing phase, then you have combined the best of both worlds. And that will be very, very, will be a peculiar and excellent kind of service to deliver or product to deliver.
Okay, so that means if we hear you correctly, we can actually merge Agile and design thinking.
Perfect, yes.
Oh, okay. Okay, thank you, sir. Mr. Adeyemi, do you have a contribution to make with respect to the connection between Agile and design thinking?
Yeah, I think it has mentioned everything.
Okay.
You get better results.
Okay. We have a question on YouTube I'd like us to take. It says, sorry, could you hold? Yes, it says, how do you as HR, how do we as HR get our stakeholders in the organization to buy into design thinking? And I think I'd like to direct that question first to Mr. Adeyemi Ajayi.
Yeah, our stakeholders basically has to be managed. I mentioned the issue of politics. There are a lot of politics that go on, and it happens within the stakeholders. And I told you are managing two interests. So you have to manage the interest in such a way that it has to deliver value for all concerned. So that tells you that you have multiple interests to deal with. And that's very important.
Okay. Sir, Mr. Oloruntoye, do you have a contribution to make with that regards?
So
Okay, we seem to have lost you, sir. I can't hear what you're saying. Okay, so very quickly, we'll just move on to another question. Mr. Adeyemi, are you with us?
Yes.
Okay.
It's a difficult one to be.
Okay, I think there's a little glitch in network. But another question for you, Mr. Adeyemi Ajayi. It says, what is the relationship between design thinking and HR business partnering?
The truth is, HR business partners, we need design thinking to be more efficient, to be more effective. There is a relationship there. It only builds efficiency and effectiveness for HR business partners. And since HR business partners are part of the ecosystem, they're required to be innovative and creative to deliver value. So it's no separation. HR needs design thinking to be effective. So there's relationship between them. They're separate configurations, but they are feasible within each other.
Okay, so how then can we use design thinking as HR business partners? How can we use it effectively?
Yeah, to create innovation at your workspace. Simple. Look at the problems you are facing, because as HR business partner, you are facing a department or a location. So you should always find out what is that problem, ideate, define, and always be creative about solving their problem. So design thinking is a creative way of solving problems. So HR business partner needs this. In fact, I would recommend it as a very key area of competence for them.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Somebody just sent in a contribution. It says, not exactly a question, but it says, I think we should look at recommending measures of design thinking, lean systems, and agile, as we are in a dynamic workplace where one solution can create the diverse solutions required. And I think I sort of agree with that. Do you have a contrary opinion? Mr. Ajayi?
No. Okay.
Hello, sir. Do you have a contrary opinion?
For me, no.
Okay.
It's just the way to go.
Mr. Ajayi, how about you? Okay, I think we seem to have lost him there. All right. A very big thank you to every one of you for the very great session. But one last question, please. How can HR apply design thinking to solve a problem between an employer who wants higher productivity and an employer that wants higher work-life balance? So we have two employees in the same organization. One is concerned with productivity, the other one is concerned with higher work-life balance. How do you think we can bring in design thinking into solving both problems?
So, first and foremost, is to understand what each set of employee, what they mean by work-life balance, and then what the other one means by productivity. Because in design thinking, we've seen, through carrying out empathy, building empathy, we've seen that many a time, or many times, what somebody says is not really what he means. And you find out that really is not really what he does. So communication, one way or the other, is can be defective, in people bringing out really what they really want. So it's always good to, build empathy with such a person by understanding what work-life balance actually means to the person and what productivity means to
The other
to the other
person.
person. When that understanding of the user is what we will now focus on solving. Okay. Uh, so it's difficult to answer without really understanding what it means to that, to the people concerned, what productivity means or what work-life balance means to them. But really, to an extent, uh, you know, some companies, or a company that we actually did something for, you will be surprised at the kind of ideas the staff were coming up with respect to productivity. For them, for some people, productivity is having higher bandwidth so that they can actually work from home during traffic hours. Because they don't want to spend 3 hours in traffic, because for some of them, it impacts them. The stress level goes higher. And once the stress level goes higher, when they get to the place of work, there is an impact on the customer, impact on other colleagues. And so if there's a way to even beat traffic, instead of spending 3 hours, they are spending 40 minutes getting to work, then the effect on productivity goes higher. And so that kind of situation, the idea being generated, was, okay, how can we empower this set of people to work, log in, they clock in at 8 o'clock, and then from 10 o'clock, they clock out to come to work when the traffic has reduced, and then they continue to the time that, that they have to leave the office. Even sometimes, do they even actually have to come to the office? What if they can actually log in and do all of their work if there is no customer-facing engagement? So these were the things that they were looking at to enhance productivity. It means a lot to different people, but you have to understand what it means to the people, do your empathy building before you come up with ideas.
Thank you so much for that, sir. Mr. Ajayi, are you still with us? Okay, so I have one question here just before we take another question on the certification in design thinking. It says, the person wants more light shed on design thinking and change management. How do you correlate both? How do you preach both in an organization? Mr. Lawrence, would you like to take that, please?
Okay, so change management in the HR organization, or change management in managing the business model. Again, we have to understand, but I will assume that the person that asked the question is talking about change management in the organization.
Yes.
Okay, so there are a lot of things involved. If we will effect change, first and foremost, collaboration, which is part of the fundamentals of design thinking, becomes important. This change that we want to effect, what is the objective? So that everybody will understand the objective. Two, the objective, is it being driven by regulators, by the environment, or is being driven by the major stakeholders, the board? Is it being driven by executive management because there is disruption coming? So first and foremost, an empathy-laden approach to help everybody understand this change becomes fundamental as a first step. And you can use design thinking to understand how to effectively, help the employees understand that, look, change has come or change is coming. And this is the reason why the change is coming. This is the effect on the company. This is the effect on the employee. We can't just push change without the people that the change will affect understand what the change is in itself. That will not make change management effective. So empathy building at that stage is helping the people understand the change, helping them understand what the impact of the change will be to them, and how the change can even help their career one way or the other. One example I like to give is the future of work. So future of work, projects are being undertaken by many companies now around the world and even in Nigeria. Okay, future of work and then workplace of the future. And that is one big change that will affect everybody. But we can't drive that change just overnight. Okay, it takes a process. And that process, we have used design thinking to help employees in an organization to understand the change that the future of work is bringing, not just to them, but actually to the business, to the organization that they are involved in. Now, once this is understood, okay, it will be easier for us to manage that change because people understand what they need to do so that change will not meet them on the negative side. So empathy building stage is important to drive change. Once we are able to overcome, once we're able to scale that, then the ideas on what needs to be done, the time of experimentation of the ideas becomes what will be inclusive and what everybody will be involved in. And you will hardly find employees being antagonistic to change because right from the onset of defining that change for what the future of work holds for the organization, they were part of that understanding and definition.
Thank you so much for that, sir. So just before you leave, I'd like you to...
Hello, can I contribute to that?
Please go ahead, sir.
Yes, sorry, I have erratic network where I am, very erratic network. So I apologize for that. You see, one of the stages also where you can define change in design thinking is at the stage of ideation. What idea do you have to bring in change? And you should look at some things in this idea. The idea must be acceptable. It may be difficult, but it should be acceptable. The idea should be such that it's cost effective, and the idea must be such that it is implementable. So in terms of change management, no change is shifting from one state to the other. And design thinking, you can only change if you have a different idea. So to a large extent, for change management, for design thinking, it's the striking points majorly, like Mr. Aderola mentioned earlier, from empathizing, that is, know that there is need for change, you start from that. But the striking point, hello, can you hear me, please? Hello?
Hello, yes.
Yes.
I can hear you.
Okay, so the major striking point is when you now generate these game-changing ideas. It goes a long way to change things.
Okay, thank you so much, sir. Very quickly before we go, somebody asked a question. I just think it's a good question. How can we get certifications in design thinking? Can one get certified in design thinking?
Mr. Aderola, come and give us a certificate.
Yes, definitely.
Okay, do you want to run us through very quickly?
Yes. So I was certified at 3 now at 3 levels now. My first certification was when I was working for SAP, because SAP is one of the pioneers of design thinking, SAP and Apple actually, of design thinking globally. So I was certified based on SAP's own framework for design thinking, sometimes in 2016. But after leaving SAP, I also went to school and I was certified at Rochester Institute of Technology. And that program is open to all. Actually, it's open to all. So, but the good thing was that my background in design thinking, in the software industry, helped me a lot in that, in that 6 or 7 months program, by RIT. So people can go to edx.org. The course is even now online. Okay, it's a 5-module course.
We seem to have lost you there.
You will, of course,
okay, we seem to have lost you there. So
I said that
second.
people can go to. Oh, okay, sorry. So can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay, good. So I said people can go to edx.org. There are schools, universities that are offering comprehensive programs on design thinking, and you write exams, you carry out projects, and you'll be certified. And for me, what matters most is what you are able to do. It's not just to get a certificate, but what are you able to do? Because really, nobody, today will bring you to a project because of certificates. They rather bring you to a project because of what you're able to do. But the skills, the acquisition, is something that, yes, that is comprehensive. And I think that CIPM too should be thinking along this line. Then the third level certification for me was with the Design Thinkers Academy, which is a global organization for design thinking in 26 countries. And I was certified last year. So you can also be certified by Design Thinkers Academy. I'm also involved with them for West Africa.
Okay, so thank you for that. But outside of certifications, CIPM has a 2-day training titled Driving HR Disruption Through Design Thinking. Now, that training is scheduled to come up on the 2nd and 3rd of June 2020. So while you're still yet preparing for your certification, you can be a part of that training, at the end of which you'll be getting a certificate of attendance. Again, I'd like to thank everyone for tuning in this afternoon. We'd also urge you to keep a date with us March 26th, when we'll be bringing yet another interesting webinar session. Now, the webinar for the month of March is titled When Depression Resumes for Duty. Yes, you heard that right. When depression resumes for duty. So what happens when depression resumes for duty? Well, we hope to see you on the 26th of March, 2020 to find that out. Again, I'd like to thank my facilitators this afternoon, Mr. Aderiola Oloruntoye and Mr. Adeyemi Ajayi, for a very engaging 1 hour and 20 minutes. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for coming on the show this afternoon.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Yes, we really do appreciate you.
Thank you.
But just before we leave, again in CIPM, we would like to reiterate the importance of improving our personal hygiene. We would like to reemphasize the fact that we need to be conscious of our health and safety always. We therefore urge all our members and non-members alike to make their health a very, very conscious endeavor. Wash your hands as often as possible because you have bacteria everywhere. Use your hand sanitizers for times when you don't have access to water and soap to clean your hands. And in this heat, we urge every one of us to always stay hydrated. Drink lots and lots and lots of water. Again, thank you everyone for tuning in. My name is Henrietta Chikuka. And I look forward to having you all next month on the 26th. Do have a very pleasant evening. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.